Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make this cute little mini plant hanger. To get started, you will need cord, scissors, some type of little dowel. In this case, I'm actually just using a stick that I found in my backyard. So really it works whatever you can find. It's less than 6 inches long. And then I'm going to be using this little shot glass that I have as a vase, but if you have just a regular little tiny vase you want to use, or a little cup or whatever, another shot glass, that is totally okay. So I'm going to start this video off on the floor. I have cut 8 cords that are 2 yards in length. Again, that's 8 cords, 2 yards in length. And I've attached 6 of them to my dowel currently with a lark's head knot. And I wanted to show you how to attach a cord to your dowel so that you can use that cord to hang from your ceiling instead of just like hooking your dowel onto a nail or whatever. So I'm going to be using another piece of cord that is a foot long, 12 inches. And this is a close-up of my cord. It's a 2mm 3-ply cord. So it's not braided, it's more just different strands kind of twisted together. It's a little bit stronger than your traditional cotton single strand. And it's good for mini projects because it's still strong, but it's fairly thin. So I'm going to start with a slip knot. And if you're familiar with crochet, you'll know how to do slip knots. So you're going to start with one end, and you're going to put 2 fingers out on your hand with the cord pointing down. And you are going to place your thumb on that cord to hold it into place. You're going to wrap behind your fingers and then over your fingers and over that end to create an X. And so you're going to want to keep your thumb fairly tight where it intersects. And again, just look for that X. And then you're going to take the remaining end and pull it through that loop. So you're going to slowly take your fingers out and make sure your thumb is still holding on to that intersection of the X. You're going to push the remaining cord through your loop while still holding on. You're going to release your thumb and you're going to hold on to the little end and then hold on to your remaining cord and pull through that loop real tight. And then from there you can just slide it onto your dowel and pull on either end and it'll tighten up that knot for you. So again, you will have your cord pointing down on 2 fingers, secure it with your thumb, wrap behind, wrap over to make an X, hold tight with your thumb, slide it off, push that remaining cord through the loop and grab the end and the long part of the cord to make it a little loop. And you'll slide that on the other end of your dowel and there you have a little hanging cord. And you can tie it any way you want. This is just, I like slip knots because they're pretty easy, but if you have a different way that you want to secure it, go for it. And so now I'm going to put the remaining 2 cords onto my dowel on either side of those 2 slip knots. Alrighty, so I am ready to start my knotting. I have my 8 cords attached to my dowel, and I'm going to first start off with the middle 4 cords. I'm going to skip the first 4, skip the last 4, and I'm going to start with the middle. So I'm going to have 2 sets of 4 that I'm going to be working with. And I'm just going to be tying a square knot on the first 4 of the middle section. And then I'm going to tie a second square knot. And finally a third square knot, all in a row on the middle section cords. So you're going to have 16 cords on your dowel total, and I'm going to skip the first 4. And then I'm going to go to the next 4 right next to that, and I'm going to do 3 square knots as well. But yeah, just wanted to emphasize, so you cut 8 cords, but because you attached with a lark's head knot, it becomes 16 that we're working with. And so you're going to skip the first 4 in a row, and then you're going to do 3 square knots, and then 3 square knots, and skip the last 4. Okay, so I have 6 square knots total. And now I'm going to take the right 2 cords on the first 4. So the right 2 cords, I'm going to take the left 2 cords of the second bunch of square knots, and I'm going to make a square knot off of those 4 so that it shows in the middle of that. I'm going to try to adjust my little hanging rack so that it's easier to see as we get going. Okay, once again, so I'm going to take the right 2, so cords 3 and 4 of that first bunch, and the left 2, cords 1 and 2 of the second bunch, and make 3 more square knots. This will create kind of a V pattern once you're done. So we have 1, 2, we have a row of 1 that's in the middle of those 2, and now I'm going to just repeat the same pattern. So I'm going to use the 4 original cords again, and I'm going to create 3 more square knots. And then I'm going to take the second 4 original cords and make square knots once again. So now when you're done with this 3, it'll kind of create an X shape. And you're still skipping the first 4 and the last 4. We'll use those later. Okay, and then again, I'm going to try to adjust my rack here so we can see better. Okay, I am back. I am adjusted now, so hopefully we can see better. As you can see, we have our X pattern with our 3 square knots. And I'm just going to kind of compare lengths. I think I want to do one more row of middle square knots. So I'm going to grab those right 2 and left 2 from our little bunches and do 3 more square knots. Okay, I think that is good to go. This will be the back portion of your plant hanger. And now I'm going to finally use those leftmost cords and the rightmost cords, and we're going to do a spiral knot. So that's done with just half of a square knot. So you'll complete the first half of a square knot, and instead of doing a normal square knot starting with the opposite cord, you're just going to keep doing the same side of a square knot essentially over and over. So I can usually get about 6 knots in before I have to turn my work to create the spiral. And so I'm just going to keep doing this spiral knot until I get to about the length of where my square knots end. And so you can start to see that spiral form as you get lower. So I'm going to keep doing this until I get to the length of my square knots, and I'm going to do it on both the left and the right side. So I will see you soon. Okay, I am back. I have completed my spiral knots, and I actually went a little bit lower than my square knot. Not by much, just a tad bit lower than where my square knots end, because when you bring those spiral knots to the front, you kind of want it to be even, and you'll need it just a tad bit longer than your square knots in the back. Alright, so now I'm going to take my leftmost spiral knot bunch, separate the cords into 2, and I'm going to get rid of the leftmost cords for now, push them to the side. I'm going to use the rightmost cords of that. I'm going to take my right bunch of spiral knots and use the leftmost cords, and I'm going to complete a square knot using those 4 cords so that the 2 spirals are joined together. And in this case, I'm just going to do 1 square knot. But if you want, you can always do more. It just depends on your preference too. If you want to do a different design, slightly different, that's totally fine too. Okay, so now the 2 spirals are together. I'm going to take my rightmost cords that were hooked to my right spiral, and I'm going to grab the next 2 cords from my square knot bunch that are available, and I'm going to make a square knot with those cords at the same height of the new square knot that I just made. And this will start kind of the webbing area of this mini plant hanger. And this is where your little vase or your cup will sit. Okay, so now the spiral and the back half of the mini plant hanger are now joined. So I'm going to flip my work over so we can see the back. And this is kind of deceptive, so it's going to look a little strange at first. So initially it looks like you're going to want to take those cords that you just tied and combine them to the back. But that's not actually the case. Since you already tied them, you don't want to do that. And so I just want to show how it looks a little tricky in the back. But because those were already part of a knot, you don't want to knot them again. You certainly can. I mean, it wouldn't hurt anything, but just aesthetic-wise, you wouldn't need to. So now you're just going to do another square knot where you already have that line of square knots. And so now in this line you'll have 4 instead of the 3. And then you'll take the remaining 2 cords that were attached to the square knot bunch, and then the remaining 2 cords that were attached to the spiral knot bunch, and you will once again tie a square knot. So that is the end of the first layer of webbing. You can see the strands are all kind of interconnected now. And so now you will take those square knots that you just tied, that new layer, you're going to separate them into 2 cords again. So now you'll create another square knot in between the square knots that you just made, using 2 cords from each. So I'm going to take the rightmost cords of that square knot and the leftmost cords of the next square knot. And I am going to leave a tiny bit of space. I'm not going to tighten it all the way. This just gives you a little bit more give when you're putting like a vase or a cup, or if you're making a big plant hanger for the pot. Just gives it a little bit more space to breathe and stretch a little bit if needed. So then once again, you'll take the next 2 cords from your square knot bunch, and then find your next closest square knot and take those 2 cords, and we're going to tie another square knot. Now I'm going to flip my work over again to the front so I can get those last couple square knots. And I'm just going to try to find the remaining cords that have not been tied yet a second time. And I'm just going to keep doing my square knots. Alright, and that is the second layer. Now is a good time to test the size of your shot glass or vase or whatever you're using, to see how and where you want it to sit. And I like that size right now. If you have a bigger cup or anything, you can do another layer of square knots or whatever you need for sizing. If you need to adjust kind of the webbing in between, feel free. But I like that size right now, so I'm going to do a gathering knot using the excess cord that I have. So I'm going to grab my scissors and kind of trim some of the excess cord just so I don't waste all of it. If you don't have as much excess due to tension or size of your cord, you would just need just another small piece of cord, like a foot in length. And then I'm going to do a gathering knot. About 2-3 inches below my square knots. You'll just want to make sure your knot is good and tight, especially if you were using like a heavy pot or a heavy vase, something like that. You just want to make sure it's good and tight. I'm just going to slide it on up to kind of where I want it to go. I'm going to test my little glass again. That's good enough for me. So I'm just going to trim these little ends on my gathering knot. And actually, I'm noticing I need to tighten it up a little bit more. And then I like the length of the little tail that remains from the gathering knot, so I'm just going to trim my remaining tassel down to that length. And then just tighten and straighten up a little bit more. And I really like this 3-ply cord for creating a tassel. It unravels so nicely. And it makes these little thin, kind of wavy strands. Like that. And so before I'm finished, I'm just going to unravel all these little pieces of cord to make a nice fluffy tassel. And I will see you soon. Alright, I finished unraveling, and I just wanted to give you kind of a close-up of your finished project and how it looks. There is my fluffy tassel after unraveling all those. Again, it's a 3-ply cotton cord. It's fun. And this is the finished project. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment below. I really appreciate you watching, and have a great rest of your day.